It is 10 o'clock and we have to start our last 2 hours of our conference. I have to say again that our conference is broadcasted through a special YouTube link and the University of Latvia channel. And I invite our audience to send questions and comments to Padlet. And the link is available in both channels. We are looking forward to 4 fascinating presentations today. And first, I am giving floor to Dr. Christoph Schindler from Leibniz Institute for Research and Information in Education from Germany. And I would like to admit that Christoph is also my colleague in ERA. Because he is link convener of Library and Information Science Network. So, Christoph, screen is yours. Please share your presentation.
Yes, thanks a lot for this kind introduction. A wonderful morning here from Frankfurt. We already said we would have loved to be in Riga, and we are looking forward to meet over there. Yes, I'm working at the DIPF in short, and I'm responsible over there for literature information systems and e-humanities with my teams. And as I said yesterday, I have a background in design. It's more system design, large system design. Especially we are designing the Fachportal Pädagogik in Germany. It's, let's say, for educational research, the central address if you want to find resources and literature about education. And in that is as well the German Education Index, and it's a reference database like ERIC, and as well a subject-oriented open access repository, Padocs, to find full text. So this is as well my main area where I'm coming from, but we are as well, let's say, designing more small-scale solutions in the area of e-humanities, where I want to present the last developments here today under the label of semantic architectures of participation in childhood research. And to be honest, after the discussion yesterday, I added the subtitle, Opening Up the Space of Connections Through Graph-Enhanced Research and Infrastructure. Please don't be shocked about these technical terms over there, but I wanted to bring in as well the possibilities. So connections, making connections between our work we make, and make it possible to think about, retrace about, and create our web of associations. And so this is the idea in the background, what I want to show you today. So what I want to do is really a short introduction. I gave you a short technical introduction into the knowledge graph idea, and jump then in some realizations we made with a participatory design approach, then 3 smaller cases, and as well, let's say, the vision of the Fachportal, where we have as well a knowledge graph in the background. And I want to summarize a bit the ideas I presented. So I want to start with this, let's say, classical tool. Probably you know all, or nearly all know, from the library. It's a wooden, let's say, card index. And for people who don't know that, you have cards inside, and in the classical way, cards with keywords and the signature of books where it is in the shelf. And so what you did as a researcher, you jumped into that, looked for keywords, and you found the relevant information about books, and then the books itself in the shelf. And to show, let's say, what is possible when the library comes together with research is here the slip box, the, let's say, card index was used from a sociologist, Niklas Luhmann, for create his networks of ideas, his networks of thinking. And it is now in the process of digital reconstruction. And you see, it's now a bit better to understand what he wrote on the card. Here, it's the definition of the socialization of the child, if I read it right, which he got out of a book and created on that, or wrote on that, the definition. And under you see the kind of notes. So the web, he created the relation between different entity, which he created to create his thinking about systems and system theory. And so this is in a way a graph, an analog graph, create relations between entities, probably between books and literature and discourses, but as well, that's the point, about research data as well, sources, the world itself. And it's very easy to connect to that. And this is the thing I want to show you today. And the technical background for that already started several years ago. Probably you remember the Web 2.0, the promises we heard yesterday in the advertisement, or Marx said, yes, there is something on it with ICT, but don't trust them all. It's right, because there are really a lot of promises, but sometimes there's something on it. And if you remember, the blogs came up, the wiki, and it was possible to write on the internet, to write text, and to be a publisher, a prosumer very easily. And this wasn't so easy before. So some people would say today, if they look at the social media and the developments, oh, the box of the Pandora have been opened and please make it back. But the other idea would be, let's jump deeper into that, what happened. So we could have contributed text and memory organizations and other think now, how is it possible to bring in more as well references to scholarly discourses and as well structured data? And so you see on the right side, the idea how a memory organization tries to bring this together and describes it in a video. It's Europeana. It's an organization who brings together the cultural resources on a European level. And they bring as well together the data, the description data about the different resources, and make them available and connect them all together. And this is, let's say, an advertisement video about how to do that. And this is all about, it's not just about publishing text on the internet, bringing as well structured data into it, and bringing as well other kind of discourse into it, probably more fact-oriented, probably as well more connected to a bigger graph, not just 155 letters or something like that. So this is the chance and the background for further developments. And the, let's say, keywords for that is called linked open data, or as well as semantic web, or further a knowledge graph. And they have some easy principles. You should use some so-called linked open data standards. So it means to use probably a vocabulary which is established, or a kind of language, how to describe these. You need to refer to entities, probably others do as well. So if I bring the example in, yesterday we had the discussion about primary books in Poland and a translation in Spanish. It could be really easily connected. So there is a primary book, it has a translation, an instance as well in Spanish, and then jump on it and describe the different local settings. So what happened in Spanish? So where was it distributed? Where was it read? Where was it, let's say, brought into mattering in the Spanish world and as well in the Polish world? And then you can describe and as well probably analyze these, compare these. So these easy possibilities are over there as well with the museum. So you can describe a concept of a museum in Latvia or in Spain, and then start to compare or to differentiate these. So these possibilities are over there, and it can be used as well in a, let's say, historical educational context, or in educational research at all. And to be honest, it's much more easier when the data is available on the internet free, but it's not a must. So you can as well refer to it and say, look over there, there's a closed box because it's about privacy data. But in this box, you can find something for researchers when they have interest. It's about, let's say, children at school talking about something. And this kind of information is very important and as well probably needed for researchers to find some data for their research interest. And the final thing is really to find the right structure. It's a very easy, let's say, structure over here described. It's subject, predicate, object. Riga is the capital of Latvia. And you can connect it further. It's part of Europe. And when we all together fill in the same way and say, yes, we have a subject, it's a capital. For Germany, it's Berlin. And for Belgium, it's Brussels. And if you put them together, we can find as well a possibility to analyze these or visualize these in a table where we can show Germany or what kind of capitals are in the EU, and we can get Berlin, Riga, as well as Brussels. And so these kinds of data structure connections are in the background. To be sure, usually a user doesn't have to take care about these kind of things, but these are in a way some concepts in the background. So what is then possible is really to connect this further to other concepts or other entities or other data sources. So this is then a big web of associations and connections which is possible to be realized. So this is in a way the idea. The great thing is in comparison to the card index box of Luhmann, you can take a part of the graph and put it to another graph, and it's then as well realized and read in the right way. So the data is in a high way transportable, expressive, and can be reused in other contexts. And this is the interesting part where memory organizations say, yes, we are interested in these. We can create out of that a great, let's say, description about our resources and connect these to discourses and other things which could be relevant for others. So this is the introduction. And what we realized is really always a setting where different kind of groups come together. It means on one side, educational researchers. It means on the others, us in the context of development and often as well digital humanities and as well library and archives. And mainly it happened with the research library for the history of education, BBF called. It's as well a department of the DIPF. They have several nice collections, for example, the Scripta Pedagogica and the Plectura Pedagogica, where we worked on. Both are as well available online. And the KIT, they developed a nice, let's say, further development of Wikipedia called Semantic Media Wiki. And with this, it's possible to have a graph in the background and make these kind of connections inside of the wiki, but as well outside to the outside world. And this is really the great thing. We have something like a collaborative database, very low barrier to use it, like you probably know from Wikipedia, but you have as well a database. So you can really visualize, analyze, and use the data in a specific way. So we don't make a lot of developments, but we try to hack, we try to align technology to our needs, really to follow the education research practices, their cycles, but as well others like the libraries or of the development. We want to bring them together to have stable systems like a graph or others which can be used. So this is the background, and further partners are involved as well. And I want to show you out of the different realizations 3. One is on the left side about classroom interactions. The other is about Bertus Bilderbuch für Kinder. And the third is about school archives. So these 3 I want to show in detail. So what we realized is a semantic wiki for school archives. The idea came up from a project realized with the colleagues from the BBF Abitur examination practices and respective essays from 1882 to 1972. And what we recognized is that the researchers were looking for archives in schools. So where do you find Abitur examinations? And they had to call around and look up where do they have and what kind of examinations do they have and which kind of period and about what topic. So they had to travel around a lot through whole Germany to get out of this information. And so the idea was that others don't have to do the same. It would be nice to write it down, to write it on the way down, other can find it. And let's create out of that a small graph about Schul archives and schools and archive material in Germany. And this on a low barrier approach. So you see it on the right side at the screenshot. Sorry, it's in German, but you could add archives, archive material, further educational institutions, literature, schools itself, school museums, and others. And so you can describe them and say, yes, you can find this and that over there. And the contact dates and researcher can jump into that and find the material. So they don't have to call the people or run around and travel around to the different schools. So what we did as well, we created the metadata in a graph in the background, but as well connections to further data. And one is really from Wikipedia, the extension Wikidata called, where they develop a data architecture which can be reused. And so we connect to that and get data from them. Another same, let's say, style of data comes from the German Integrated Authority file. So we can connect to them and get data as well from them to really enrich our graph. And this is the idea what we made over there. And I show you the examples of the exam material. Out of the data, we created very fast a table. It's a classical table. On the left side, you see the title. It's about Abitur work. You get the start date, the end date. It's from 1947 till 2020. It's a long-term period, documented. It's all written and voice written things of the Abitur, and on the right side, the archive. And usually you see as well where it comes from, for example, from the Gymnasium Leopoldinum in Passau, and you can browse the graph link, click on that, and you get the page about the gymnasium. And over there, you get data from Wikidata. So it's not our data. We just connect to Wikidata and say, please give us your data, the image and others, and describe it. And we put it over there. And if you scroll down, you get further data out of the graph. It's the literature you can really add in, but as well data from the GND, the German integrated data file. And this kind of thing is what we want to realize often, really a low burden possibility to extend this kind of graph and go through it and connect it to others. So beside these example, I have a further one. It's Bertuch's Bilderbuch for children, for Kinder, or in English, picture book for children. And probably you know it. It has been realized from 1790 to 1830. It has a lot of volumes, a lot of plates with figures on it. And it's really used in formal and informal educational processes. So this is the idea to really bring these into such a graph and offer the possibility to add information to it, analyze it, and open it for others to really bring in their ideas or their analysis about the Bertuch's Bilderbuch. We called it like a citizen humanities approach and put in as well 6 concrete tasks, what they can do. And for example, what is possible, you see here an example of the graph with small icons on it, which is in the background. On the top, you see the publication as a tablet. You get volumes, you get over there as well a creator and as well images, and they're linked together. And what we wanted in one task as well is, please give us a hint if you found an image which could be a template, image which has been created before and looks very similar, and give us a link to this image. Then we can have a look to it and describe it or go on and compare it. And this is what we realized. We made a description on it. On the bottom, you see already the imported different links which describe the different figures on the tablets. And here is the example of the Stachelschwein aus Indien. And you put over there, besides the link to the image on the own wiki, on the own page, the external link, where probably in a memory organization, the image is as well digitized and available. And they did it over here. You see it at Gallica in French or in France. And there it is, the image. You can compare it to the image at Berthoud. And these kind of possibilities are over there, enriching the graph with connections, and offer then this for others really to have it as well as a database for a next step. So this is really as well a part of graph which can be probably reused in other contexts. So as a third example, it's more going into to the contemporary time, is about classroom interaction, and the idea was to open the collaboration process. So usually here it's a qualitative analysis process of a protocol, of an interaction protocol in a classroom. You have teachers, you have pupils, they interact in a lesson. And in Germany, we have the method of objective hermeneutics. It's, let's say, funded from Overman. He died recently, but he brought in a stepwise interpretation process. And this is very important in education research in Germany, especially for teaching teachers to get an impression what kind of interaction are going on in schools. And so this is a very, let's say, practice-oriented as well approach for capacity building for teachers, and is very used broadly in educational faculties. So what we try to do is to really get this need over there to realize a research-based learning approach, so that students can go into in the protocol, get it on a digitized way, and interact and analyze it, and go through it in an iterative circle, like the method is used, and go stepwise into the different interpretation processes and create out of that the graph in the background, but on the front end as well, the interaction with the material, the interaction protocol. And they go stepwise through this process to have at the end a stable hypothesis about the case of the protocol. And this is the main idea over there, which then have as well in the background a kind of graph again with the transcript, and as well, this is the great thing, the possibility to jump and browse through the different nodes of the graph. And what we did over there as well is a short evaluation, and I want to give you two examples what the students said. Yes, especially beginners really love this kind of tool, because you have very early methodological guidance at hand. Yesterday we said guidance could be difficult, but for beginners, guidance could be as well great to get in contact with the method and know how, let's say, the classical standard is. After that, you can hack the standard, deconstruct it, and create it to your own. But the first thing is a nice approach to know the standard, the canon, and then you can destroy it and build your own one. And this is the idea in the background, or the feedback what the students gave. And the other is in the blended learning context, the researcher or the lecturer in this case could really jump into the different interactions and realizations or writings of the students and give feedback and the right concrete points of the collaboration. So these just two examples of the feedback. And the last example I want to give is really the developments we want to start at our Fachportal, or already did, with a funded project of the German National Research Fund Foundation. is to bring our Fachportal Pädagogik into a knowledge graph and open over there the possibility to enrich it and bring it further. So to bring in different notes we described on the right side, and as well create out of that an open systems for, let's say, open scholarship, in the sense that different resources are connected together and as well are reusable and connectable for others. So this is the idea of connecting, in a way, our worlds from the research side and as well from the infrastructure side. What I try to show you is some potentials of knowledge graphs, let's say the semantic architectures which came up further after the Web 2.0 developments. What I tried to do is to show you the possibility to describe complex, detailed networks of associations. Could be different connections to archives, libraries, research, or their sources, concepts, and ideas. Can connect as well qualitative and quantitative data. You can jump into the text or other things and describe it in more details, like for example, scholarly discourses, laws, and essays, or as well to follow really the whole scholarly value chain, like in the example of the research-based learning of students. What is really interesting over there as well is you can handle, in a way, complex data. This is great because I have as well a background in qualitative research, and that is always the boundary in digital systems, that they are really just fact-oriented in small snippets of knowledge. Over there is the chance to really bring in connections in a wide range of sense or network sense. And yes, as always, a lot of amounts of data which could be handled as well. So what the idea is over there is the sharing as well of parts of the graph, which can be as well then reused in other contexts, for example, in memory organizations or as well researchers in their research. But as well as there are as well challenges. So it's a real thing to balance between the research and the archive. So both worlds have their resources and need to find a way where is done what and to what kind of extent. I put down as well the point that the research communities need to find, let's say, what is value of what. So they need to find ways to decide what is worth to jump into a description and what not. And this is as well on the other side to be done at the memory organization, which I showed as well some examples where this is already starting. And especially the part is very important that a new kind of how is it called, profession is arising called data librarian. So this is really an interesting, let's say, solution which brings together different worlds. In this kind of context, the librarian archive world with the research world, that they have different experts by sides by doing their research to think about data, and as well they're possible connecting to the outside world. So this is in a way my presentation. I want to end with a call for starting exploring and connecting through links. Thanks for the possibility to share my ideas here in this group.
Thank you very much, Christoph, for this rich presentation. And actually, you showed what we can dream about. I mean, our project with our database. It is very good example how to develop our idea. So, any questions, comments? Actually, I have, yeah, Angelo, please.
Well, thank you, Christoph. Now I also understand why you reacted to my presentation yesterday and the way you did it. because it's exactly what I meant by referring to an ecological way of thinking at the beginning of my presentation. It reminded me when you started with Luhmann's quote of how I actually where I started with what Maria also noticed, with this interest in progressive education, and then it led me to all kinds of connections and following the threads between sources. I think it's really very useful what you presented here. I'm very glad that I heard you explaining these things. So we really need to connect and to see what might be possible in that regard. Yesterday, someone was also referring to he isn't there, referring to the actor network theory, and there are so many theories that are related to an ecological way of thinking. And with Luhmann, I was thinking of what Siebold has called the ruminant, or what in connection to Siebold has called a ruminant curiosity. And then I was thinking of Mark's research. He is very often referring to appropriation, and even without labeling it as an ecological way of thinking, it's simply to see what it means to you and how you as a researcher are dealing with sources and so on. And you may call it appropriation. So the way you appropriate sources, ruminate with a ruminant curiosity, ruminate content of the sources you read, and putting it in networks, in meshworks, in assemblages, etc., etc. And this is rather a comment, because I might start to talk about this for another 10 minutes, and then it's not leading really to a question, but that it really connects to my approach, what I presented yesterday. But there's of course this digitization part of it, which I'm not familiar with. That's well, I've been working with others who are familiar with this, but I myself I don't know. So I really think there's a need to bring this in our field, and therefore I'm very glad that you're here and that you presented this. Of course, I'm working in this German context. I know part of what you presented, but it's good to see that this is going on, and also to see the possibilities. And I don't know whether there's a relation with Iveta, for instance, why she invited you. But I see it will be helpful for many of us, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, because probably I can just add something, because I'm in a way a disciplinary bastard, and I came up from cultural anthropology with a focus to science and technology studies. So I did my PhD with a bridge between anthropology of STS, science technology studies, and information science, and the main aspect was design. And so I follow your ideas to describe it as actor network theory. That's what we need to do, you know, so to think about actors, networks, and how they are mattering in the world. And I like to be part of that, and that's now the challenge, how to do that in an interesting way, that the different interests of different stakeholder groups are come together in these kind of new developments, and we need to find a common language. How do we want to have our future in scholarship? So that's the floor is open, and if we don't do that, other do it for us. So this is now the point, and I think humanities and educational research can do a lot over there, and it's a lot of things to think about and do it as well. So thanks for your, let's say, unfolding of the network in other things. Thanks a lot.
Maria, please, your question.
Thank you very much. Well, it's not really a question, it's another comment. I want to transmit you I was enjoying very, very much your lecture, and I was only feeling relaxed, very, very, very much relaxed, because in Spain, we are more in the first part, in the boxes. We are still with the boxes with the paper inside that you have shown at the beginning. And I think that this is really the future. And I was very touched by this concept of the school archives, because I think that this has an enormous potential for Europe, for the future, and for connecting all the world, because in the schools, they still having a lot of documents and a lot of material and a lot of objects that they were flying objects. They were coming from France, from Germany, from everywhere, and that I think that they were very much comparable. So, well, my only question is where you get the money for doing that, because it's wonderful, but I don't know how we can get it. And thank you for this sensibility. For example, in Spain now, I'm really happy because the people of the archives, they have recognized that there is a potential with the school archives, and now they are writing a book, and it will be a chapter about the school archives. But we are in this step, so we are very, very far from where you are. But I think that this is the future. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And it's really the hard point to get the money for that. And we are in the situation, or I was in the situation that I got paid for my PhD, and afterwards got a, let's say, a project at the DFT about research environment. And this was the starting point 10 years ago. And since then, we are really playing around with the possibilities, and had as well the colleagues at the KIT in the boat, but as well the colleagues from the BBF. And this was a good part, a good possibility really to think about how could a future world be realized, not just in a, let's say, technocratic way, in a participative way. And this we really could realize. And probably there's as well the great connection to IVETA on the European level. I'm glad that we have the ERA and the ESA where we can meet and think about things, and hopefully probably we can make next year a face-to-face session again. It would be great, probably about this topic. So this would be a nice possibility to bring together as well over their ideas in connecting again on a European level, and bring ideas further, and let's say create as well, let's say, tensions and fire out of it. So this is what we need to do to articulate our needs and interests over there.
Thank you very much. I have very, very short question, because time is already over, about legal rights. Because in our small database, we still struggle with this, because all museums have their legal rights regarding their objects. How do you solve this issue?
Yes, let's say there are legal rights, but they're often, let's say, archival material which are personal oriented. And so there's the kind of right system. Publications, they don't have, let's say, the metadata of publications, the formal, they don't have rights. You can use it. Let's say they have rights, sorry for that, but they have not the status of a creative work, and so they can be used. And as a referrer to it, to say, over there's a publication, and I am thinking about this publication, that this is a keyword or something like that, it's as well not, let's say, such creative act that it has copyright. And so it's open in this way. And if there is a problem with, let's say, personal rights in the background, you can close it as well, but you can say there exists something like an exam or something like that. You can describe it and people can find it, researcher. And then if they want to look at it, they can go to the archive and say, please show me, here's my research interest. It's okay for me. And then we have the legal rights to do that, and I can look for it. But the first information is there relevant for me at this kind of school archive? And this is really the needed information. And afterwards, I can go on to the second step and go probably to the telephone or to the mail, or as well local to the thing. And to add something to Maria, we had the chance as well to get some further funding with at the German DFG and as well at the BMBW. So there is a chance for funding in this context as well. So just to give this as information as well.
Thank you very much, Christoph, for this interesting presentation. And now I'm very happy to welcome Lena Lohmus from National Archives of Estonia. And frankly speaking, when we organized this conference, we tried to address different memory institutions. And I can say that archives were not very open, and therefore I'm very happy that Lena is here, because I contacted archives in Latvia, I contacted archives in Lithuania, and just Estonia was so supportive, and Lena is here. Please, Lena, floor is yours.
Thank you. And hello from rainy Tartu. Labdien visiem. I tried to share my screen, but I don't know. Do you see anything?
No, we don't see it yet. Please push green button.
Yeah, green button. I try it again. Well.
Is your presentation open to your screen? Yeah. It goes.
Something is. I tried to find now my.
Yeah. Everything goes well, and this is your presentation. Perfect, Lena.
And here maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I'm not a scientist, I'm not an archival teacher, I'm just archivist. And I will tell you about our experience in finding material from archival storage and about the work on our archival teachers. So how to find anything from the National Archives. Of the around 9 million archives documents of the archives, 4% are digitized and can be accessed from the home computers. However, many are not digitized and can only be viewed at the archives. From the National Archives homepage, we will find the archive's own info system, RES, Archive Information System, which contains a list of all the records held in National Archives as well as other memory institutions. By searching the terms lapsed, it means child, kinder, kind, deti, maloletnie, and so on, from the info system, it returns quite a lot of results containing the search word. And asterisks may be used for the search term. That is quite a lot of answers. When we think of childhood, we can't recall many reasons why any documents from this period should be archived. But we all went to school. Therefore, a lot of critical materials can be found from the collection of education institutions. Reports of the first schools in Estonian areas can be found from the Swedish era on the 17th century. Greatest school establishment happened in 19th century, as in Latvia, I guess. Information about children's education can be found in the documents of churches and congregations regarding children's ability to read or knowledge of the catechism. For example, there is a note from the pastor of Rannu parish on the control children's reading skills. It is from 1834 to 1840. This year's. It states in which village inspection was carried on and what were the children's skills, whether they had studied at home or at school. Various questionnaires can be found regarding schools, although these give a rather general overview of children's education and the existence of schools, as well as the number of students and the level and pay of the teacher. These can be found in the collection of Learned Estonian Society, starting in the 1860s, and from the 1880s in the collection of Estonian Knighthood. However, starting the end of the 19th century, schools collection with study programs, grade sheets, student assessments, along with questionnaires has survived. From the first decades of the 20th century, many schools' chronic books with drawings and photos have been preserved as well. By the way, here is written how the schoolboys were arbitrarily absent from classes. If you see these words, they cited the funeral of Latvian President Čakste as a reason of absence, and this is written in school chronics book. Special attention must be paid to institution of educating future teachers, teacher seminars. These prepared upcoming teachers who also had a practice in schools. Diaries from these practices are especially interesting to researchers. For example, the diaries from Tartu Teacher Seminar give an overview of the school life and condition from 1920 to 1944. These include notes of what the school had, what the children were like, their abilities and behavior, along with the notes of what a young teacher noticed. As an example, a young teacher notes from Estonia's border area, Setomaa, include a description about young girls who can make beautiful handicraft but are not as interested in studying. Locals in the area believe that linen clothes were a symbol of poverty. Only after the teacher had shown her beautiful linen dresses did the locals start to think about sewing and wearing similar clothes. At the time, it was typical for women from Setomaa to wear folk clothes. This is an interesting example how the role model of a school teacher influences local people, teacher as influencer. But now, when the childhood does end, interesting childhood memories, sources of information and social status can be found from the students' files of Tartu University and the Veterinary Institute of Tartu. Less organized biographies can be found from the materials of students' organization, such as Association of Corporations. For example, the collection of Latvian student organization Metraine, which is the informal name for Tartu in Latvian, include handwritten autobiographies with photos of the members. And here is written Krišjānis Streimanis, whose childhood was in Russia, in Latvia, and now he's in Estonia and studies in University of Tartu. And how was his childhood? Interesting and of course, a very, very happy childhood. But of course, personal collection and private correspondence cannot be forgotten as vital sources about children's life in the past. Such letters often include info about the life of the family youngest members. Sometimes children's own letters, notes, drawings, assignments, and other items can be found, which help to see the day-to-day of a child at the time. Here is correspondence of the family of Jan Poska. He was one of the most important concluser of Estonian-Russian peace treaty in 1920s. And here is his children's postcards to each other and their parents from Paris, from Tallinn, from Haapsalu, from Berlin, and so on. Children in court. It's a very big material in our archives. A different sort of material can be found from court, especially local municipal court collections. Problem with paying farmhands' salary, bullying at school, parents complaining that their child was left stupid because the teacher beat them, children acting up at adults and smaller appreciation of the norm. Take care for orphans and so on. However, there are very serious cases, like a girl from Pagari municipality who murdered an infant she was supposed to care for and burned down many houses. There is Estonian higher county court, Konferences court file. Konferences courts deal with underage or otherwise unaccountable offenders. A farm girl, Maria Yanes from Pagari Mansion, accused of arson and murder of her brother. The girl was a shepherd. She liked to play with fire. She would take hot coals from under a stove and would throw them onto the roof. She had burned down many houses and barns this way in her village. The file contains in-depth analysis of the girl's life, physics, psychological skills, behavior. The girl had also been interrogated. One day, she had been babysitting her 5-month-old brother, and in her words, she got the will to place her hand over her brother's mouth. This was not her first such case, as she had also suffocated a child at the mansion for whom she had also been babysitting. The child was placed in a mental health institution. Our archives also contains files on the work problems of children working in factories, accidents at work with children, etc. Children in photos. The National Archives photo database Photis contains a lot of different visual material about the life of children. The database is currently under development, and in the future, the photo, audio, and video material should be found in a new database named Mediatek. But now, something interesting. Archive pedagogy. There is an educational program dedicated to introducing the National Archives to students and their mentors, Archive School. With introducing the National Archives' main fields of work, it teaches those interested to use the National Archives databases and supports studying Estonian history through archived materials. The National Archives has 4 archives pedagogues, 2 in Tallinn, 2 in Tartu. They can be invited to conduct archive lessons all around Estonia, whether it is a school, a local museum, a genealogy association, or library that invites them. The lessons for school are in line with the state curriculum and can also be held online. The pedagogues cannot complain about lack of work when in-person tours couldn't be conducted in the National Archives. So-called virtual tours or lessons were often ordered instead. Archive lessons for students can be on various topics based on the state curriculum. As said, the lessons can be done both virtually or in person in the archives. Many subjects are often mixed into the one lesson, such history and media, history and Estonian, and geography, chemistry, and so on. Archival lessons use historic sources to answer different questions. For example, what was school like 100 years ago? What kind of part did the Estonian people play during our re-independence? What interesting did Krusenstern see on his travels around the globe? Our archive pedagogues often go to school to conduct archive lessons. As I said, they do general introduction to the archives and conduct them lesson based on the school's request. In upper elementary and high school, a research project must be completed. The students often choose to do a family or farmstead research. Schools can also order lessons on the basics of such projects or on use of archive materials for such projects. Teachers often also will combine an archive lessons and workshops. These workshops are held on, for example, how to write in Gothic or how to make a notebook or marble paper or something else. Study materials are different subjects. They include doable tasks for a specific age group. For example, completing a theme jigsaw puzzle or answering questions. The key can be sent to the teacher who can assess the results in class with the students. The teacher is also sent instructions on how to use such materials and how else to look into. Archive School helps to improve the curriculum by using historic documents, maps, plans, photos, and movies. Introduction to historic sources helps students an interest in history, and using such materials helps teachers plan their lessons. In the National Archives building in Tartu and Tallinn, people can also visit exhibition on history or archives. Archive lesson and guided tours can be ordered on our homepage, so archivalschool.era.ee. There are also plenty of study materials which students and teachers can use on their own. And most important information, archive school services are free for all. A little bit statistics from our archival pedagogy in 2019, when we were open in Tartu only. Tallinn statistic, I don't know. There were approximately 2,000 people went on excursions. 1,300 students participated in archive lessons. In school, the archive was introduced to 793 people. More than 4,000 people participated in all archival pedagogical activities on the side of the Tartu region of the National Archives. And the National Archives is also giving out an annual student prize from 1996 to inspire university students to use archive materials in their research. This year's competition saw 13 entries, 6 bachelor and 7 master degrees theses. These come from not only University of Tartu, but also other universities of Estonia. The prize pool is 750 euros. And you are very welcome to visit our archive. So virtually contact please with our archive teachers, Liisi Papster or Edith Eskor, or visiting us again, Nooruse 3, Tartu, Estonia. And if you are interested in, I try to share my computer view with our homepage, where are this beautiful task for the how to find the material. Unfortunately, it's only in Estonian, the archival school things. There is a film about us, archive lessons. It was already in the slide, but different ways to learn something. And workshops, how they are, and materials for lessons. Here is how for learning the architects and which kind of house he was on his project was built, and so try to this jigsaw take, or who is on the picture, and answer the question, send the answer to the teacher, who is taken the who is drawing this picture and who is on the picture, and so on. And the ICE, National Archives Info System, and FOTIS, and our digitized materials you can find or here. So I try to go out here.
Just thank you, Lena, first of all for your very informative presentation. So, any questions, comments?
Maybe comments, because maybe I can't answer very quickly because about archive teachers, today they are not in work and I can't call them. Please answer something.
Okay, I will give just one comment. I was fascinated with your question, when does childhood ends, because this is my favorite task for students every year. They have to interview one person with this question, and then we continue to speak about different ends of childhood. But I see that Christoph raised the hand. Please, Christoph.
Yes, thanks for your really interesting talk. And I liked it really, and especially the aspect of school archives, because it brings together a lot of different things we already discussed. So yesterday, I remember Angelo's example where the different actors connected and came into mattering through different kind of activities. And it's really nice that you address schools via this kind of website. And I think it's really a chance as well for historians to really work with you together, to really offer over there to pupils great material. And you realized already nice material, and there's this great, or let's say a big discussions about open educational resources. So really opening up the kind of materials and use a lot of didactics to bring it to the people and the pupils, and you made it really happen over there. That's really great to see. We can really learn a lot of your approach. That's really nice to see. And what I wanted to ask is, do you have further context with school librarians? And do you think this could be something as well, let's say someone, an actor in schools who helps to really have contact with archives or libraries or something like that, and brings as well, let's say, in schools something like a discourse from your side?
In Estonia, they are last time liquidated the school libraries at all, and all we can do is here in archives, and of course my colleagues are very, very good on this. They are practiced in Great Britain, and so unfortunately, yes, we hadn't contact with school libraries. They are very small, or they are not. But the teacher of history teachers are very happy to visit us, because, as I said, all services are free for all, and no tickets or something we ask them.
Thanks. And
please contact our colleagues.
And liquidation, it sounds really hard. So I hope there is a chance for future, let's say, exchange. And really, it sounds like a great chance really to come into schools and offer over there as well ideas coming from educational historical research. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. And now I'm giving floor to Professor Linda Daniela, who is not historian, but who did, I think, yes, she worried a bit. She said, you all will be historians. I am from educational sciences, but she had a very fascinating research about virtual museums, which is very topical issue in this pandemic situation, also for historians, as I mentioned yesterday. So, Linda, please, screen is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iveta, for introducing me. And it's true, I was a bit nervous when Iveta addressed me to present this research, but I will show you and I will explain what was done, and maybe it would be interesting. And sorry guys, a bit technical minutes. So I suppose that you see the presentation.
Yes, everything works well.
Yeah, but one more button should be pushed. Okay. And now I suppose everything is as I expect. Okay. Topic: virtual museums and their educational potential. And as Iveta said, I am mostly interested in education and in educational technologies, digital aspects of education, and maybe that's a topic here. So content of the presentation: why virtual museums, which virtual museums, evaluation strategy I will explain, results of evaluation, and of course limitation of research, and some conclusions. I will start with conclusions and then will come limitations. Why? Because of COVID, because of restrictions to get somewhere, because of interest in digital technologies, of course, interest in research and interest in museums. So I put all these things together and tried to do something here. And the museums use digital solutions to interest society in museum collections because virtual solutions all allow people to explore other dimensions of information. And one of the challenges facing museums is fighting for visitors' interest to display artifacts and situations that would otherwise not have been displayed, such as artifacts that no longer exist or historical situations that are no longer experienced, to preserve and allow access to a variety of exhibitions that an individual can visit virtually without time and national boundaries, as exhibitions are variable, but preserving them virtually can preserve contemporary history, thus contributing to the sustainability of cultural values and to contribute to the development of an inclusive society, as access to museum experiences in this way is more accessible, both in terms of physical access, such as people with reduced mobility, and in terms of cost. For example, getting to a museum in Paris can be quite an expensive adventure. And searching strategy, what I've done, I searched for these museums in App Store. And it's important because there can be different strategies, and in my research only App Store, keywords virtual museum were used. I picked only those museums which were free of charge, and it's because this was not funded research, so I didn't want to spend a lot of money for this entertainment research. Okay, which virtual museums? A total of 56 applications were selected. 14 of them were intended solely to inform museum visitors about museum opening hours, ticket prices, access, exhibitions, and other practical information. So there is nothing to analyze from educational perspective. 4 experiences were excluded from the evaluation because suggested language was unknown to me. So there was quite a good museum but it was everything in French, so I couldn't evaluate it. It's my fault, of course, that I don't know these languages. Polish and Chinese museum. Also, 2 more apps were excluded because despite being listed as free, there was a charge for attending each exhibition and space. And after in-depth evaluation of all criteria, 36 virtual museum applications were evaluated in deep according to all criteria which were selected. So list of museums analyzed, so I will not read it. It's just to see that there are some museums which were analyzed. And some examples, tank tour, it was quite interesting because we could get in these tanks. Bilbao, you could see, and all these points were active. We can get in and see information about Bilbao. Also, this was from Budapest, one Budapest museum, and you can see there is a square on a horse. So when you put screen on that, you can read information about this piece of art and get more information about the author, about the meaning of pictures, about the style used in that. And I get in also in deep because in my criteria there was also included technical solutions, and one was great Universal Museum of Arts. There were quite a lot exhibitions, which could be. I will not show you all of them, just those which were most interesting. Nikola Tesla experience. I suggest to look inside, and a lot of nice information. It's Houston House. Also, you can see different aspects and Zoom information. One of my favorites, it's maybe not exactly virtual museum, but I suggest that you use its daily art application, and then every day you will get one piece of specific art where you can find the information. And there are few about Pompeii, but here just I will show you how it looks. For example, in picture, you can see how it looks. You can go and change picture and see how it was in previous times. 3D version, you can look from above and you can read the information about this place. So it's quite interesting for me, not only from research perspective, but from knowledge building perspective, I would say. Okay, so research question was, what is the potential of virtual museums from a learning perspective, and can they be used as learning agents? And objectives of the research analysis of mobile virtual museum applications from 3 perspectives that synergetically complement each other. It was technical performance, it was information architecture, and it was educational value using the principles of transcendental design. And quantitative analysis of the data collected to find out the best applications from an educational perspective, and qualitative data analysis to interpret the resulting data. And research methodology. Research is carried out from a phenomenological perspective, and to be more precise, virtual museums are analyzed using principles of transcendental design, and hermeneutic principles are used to interpret the resulting data. These were criterions for using. I had 5 criterions for information architecture. I am educator, so I will remind you, so I don't have much experience in information architecture and technical performance. I just, it was from outside, and educational value, there were 8 criteria. So there is a full list of these criteria. I will not read all of them to you, and all of them were divided in 3 levels. And for it is small part of this tool which I was using while I was evaluating all these museums. So you can see that there are quite a lot information collected, and this is one example. For example, information about the place of origin of the artifact, and for each criteria, levels were different. So I didn't have the same information about each level. And it was written there. So all evaluated museums, 36, and you can see that blue one goes for technological performance, red for information architecture, and green for educational value. So you can see that the red one quite better than other criterions, other groups. But again, I will not explain each museum. I will just show you data. And next, how can I get to next picture? What? Okay. Technical performance and information architecture. Again, from that perspective, technological performance, I just chose not all museums. I chose in that task, let's say, I narrowed them and made comparison of those museums who got higher numbers in evaluation. And the last one of virtual museums which get better results in all criteria. But as you can see from all of them, educational value is lower than other perspectives and other criteria. It doesn't mean that we can't use these museums for educational purposes. It just means that we have to evaluate them and to find how we can use. So, and now I am coming to conclusion part. Fowler emphasizes 3 stages of learning through virtual reality that can also be taken into account for virtual museums. The first one is conceptualization, construction, and discussion. And in museums, it can be, in those virtual museums, it can be concluded that in the conceptualization phase, where a student should learn and interpret facts, concepts, and theories, it is possible to learn facts through a virtual museum's information and to receive additional information about it. Only in one of analyzed applications was there a built-in knowledge assessment test, but it was more focused on testing memory processes for factual knowledge. So no metacognitive levels were reached there. And last one, the opportunity to interpret the facts presented in applications was not included in any of them. It means that there is still a place for real teacher, for a real person who supports learning in this environment. The second stage is where the learner has to construct new knowledge or competencies using learned facts and concepts in new contexts and compare different experiences. But none of the virtual museum applications analyzed provided such an opportunity, so the support of teacher is needed here too to provide this knowledge, which can be done through discussions and group work, including on information gained from virtual museums and information provided by teachers. And this means that the third stage, which Fowler emphasized, can then be reached through the pedagogical work of a teacher. And considering learning in museums as a form of active learning, the potential for virtual museums exists. This was seen in virtual museum applications that showed specific locations. Even better if the application provided the possibility to interact with artifacts, interact with narrator, or explore art pieces in detail. This can both ensure that individual reflection is triggered while interacting with the nature and concreteness of museums, intangible artifacts, and support culturally responsive teaching, thus scaffolding the learning of new knowledge. And virtual museums can be considered as learning agents for upward learning curves, as such solutions can help broaden the spectrum of collaboration with digital materiality and help visualize and spatialize abstract concepts and involve learners as co-designers and co-researchers in this process. So I messed up. Museums can be used as situated learning spaces, but during the evaluation process, it was found out that only a few aspects of situated learning were introduced in apps of virtual museums. Therefore, this requires the presence of a teacher seamlessly manipulating various tools, sometimes virtual museum to foster learners' interest, but sometimes additional information provided by the teacher to ensure that the information provided in virtual museum has a proper context, because in order to appreciate a work of art, it's also necessary to know about forms of artistic expression and the symbolic meaning of the artwork. And the reception of feedback supports the learning process, but the provision of feedback was not possible in any of the virtual museums, so it is necessary to get this feedback from the teacher instead. There are only few applications where it is possible to change the way information is received, and it can be concluded that this type of learning contributes to some extent to inclusive education from the perspective of assessing information in museums through an application such as providing people with mobility issues or disabilities, for example, reduced mobility, socio-economical situation with access to this knowledge. However, in most of the evaluated virtual museum applications, it is not possible to change the way information is received because it's not possible to change the language, to switch between written and audio information or vice versa, or to turn on sign language. This confirms that not all principles of inclusive education have been taken into account, and this must be considered both from an information architecture point of view and from technological perspective. And limitations, only virtual museum applications that are available free of charge were used for evaluation. The result may be different for applications for which there is a charge. And despite the fact that evaluation of virtual museums was carried out from using structured evaluation, it still involves an aspect of subjectivity. Since evaluation was carried out by a person, it's me, with a certain amount of technological experience, pedagogical principles, and information architecture conditions, as evaluation are largely due to the evaluator's current knowledge. And this limitation can be mitigated, albeit not completely eliminated, but the continuation of research activities, the expansion of research base, and the development of deeper details of the evaluation section. And thank you for listening. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Linda, for this very rich presentation. So, any questions or comments? I think that if I can ask you, what would your very concrete suggestion to create a perfect virtual museum for educational purposes? What would be the main advice?
Oh, let's start that first advice, you will need a lot of money. But if we come over this restriction, then I would say that there should be, of course, all the stages for educational processes. It means introduction, interesting pieces, students can interact with, it can be interaction with artifacts, interaction with narrator, information is provided in different ways. For example, it's explained by narrator, or it's explained in written form, or it is changed from one way to another. But at the ending point, there should be knowledge evaluation or feedback at least, but none of these virtual museums which I was evaluating at that point, there wasn't such possibility. And it's also not only for these virtual museums, as I mentioned, I'm really interested in digital technologies and education, technology enhanced education. It's my research topic, which I'm doing. And it's always a problem with this ending stage. It's always very weak knowledge evaluation point in these digital learning materials. And museums are not the exception.
Yeah, I perfectly understand what you are talking about. So, Maria, please, you have a question.
No, it's not a question, it's a proposal. I think that what Linda has told is a very nice story, and I think that we should try to go together for the museums of education, the pedagogical museums. We had many. I have seen the first day that in Latvia there are many. And when I was working for this presentation, I had been visiting almost all the ones, or many of the ones that are in Spain, and I was noticing that the web pages were really very poor and with a lot of text. But some of them, they were starting with virtual visits. It's true, there were 3 or 4, and well, these were very much local orientated, but I was thinking that it was there very much to improve, and also with this international orientation. So I think that there we have a project, we have a lot of work to do for the future. And what Linda has pointed us with her paper, we can apply it to the part of the pedagogical or history of education museum. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. Indeed. So, if we don't have any, Christoph, please.
Yes, thanks for your great presentation. And I want just to link to Lena, because an ideal educational approach at a museum could be as well if they have something like a school museum. So to think about how could they address really pupils and, like Lena showed, create educational resources out of it and really bring out these kind of concepts or materials to their platforms, and then be as well part of the stakeholder over there and guide through that. And that would be really great. So thanks for your ideas and your analysis over there. This is just a comment, and I like this connection to your both presentation. Thanks for that.
So thank you. And I believe that it's Iveta's work. She connected us together with after another.
Thank you indeed. So we are going to our special guest today, as I promised yesterday. It is Toms Zariņš. He is doctoral student at the Faculty of History and Philosophy at the University of Latvia, but he is invited, and I'm very happy that he accepted my invitation, because he was a consultant of Latvian movie, and I learned him because he asked about my experience, my photos about Soviet time school, but how it is to work as historian with movie makers. It is very special experience, I think. So, Toms, please, screen is yours. Because, of course, what we are doing next. When I sent out our proposal for this conference, I wrote a small note that we perhaps could put together some volume published at the University of Latvia. After these 1.5 days, I have a clear proposal, which I can't formulate it now, of course, very exactly, but I will send it out individually. I think that all our presentations were about sources, and were about connection with university. And therefore, I would be happy if we would think about a methodology of studying history of education. Because when we speak about the ends, then I don't know how you noticed it during the conference, that methodology in museums, in archives, ends in high school, with high school students. And I think that audience in university is somehow specific. They have chosen their professional lives. They have to study. They have to improve themselves in research. And therefore, my idea would be that we continue to speak how to use our sources as Kostya Raptsev diary, as journals, as museums, as archives, as film, as Tom showed as virtual museums. How we can methodologically use it in students, university students' audience. But of course, we all can borrow methods from history teaching at secondary schools. But on the other hand, as I said, I see student audience a bit specific, a bit different. Of course, I also like very much offer of Christoph that we can discuss this issue further at conferences as Easter in Milano, Easter in Yerevan next week, next year, or Ishi in Milano next year, or even we can postpone it to next better time. It is just my idea. As I said, I will contact everybody individually, and we can develop it in one or other directions. So it is just idea brought on the table, and I'm very thankful from the behalf of organizing committee of this conference for all these fascinating presentations. Do you have any comments or any ideas to share? Or yeah, Mark, please.
First of all, I would like to thank Iveta in the name of everybody for organizing this wonderful seminar. I think it was very fruitful and thoughtful for everybody. So I see in the reactions that everybody agrees with me that you have done a wonderful job. Unfortunately, we couldn't visit this wonderful city of Riga again. I like it very much, but you know that. And this is indeed a wonderful place. So thank you very much, Iveta. That's the first thing. I think about the second thing of publication. As far as myself is concerned, I think everybody will agree that we can have a publication, but it should be good that there is a backbone and that there is a backbone of ideas that makes together a little bit the different papers. So as you suggested, you have something in mind. I think it's a good idea to send it to us and that we can reflect upon it, and that we can postpone it a little bit, and that we will have a very good publication. I suppose it will be in English, although you suggest the University of Latvia will be the publisher, or a publisher from Latvia. That is no problem, I think. But we can have then an open discussion. I think time is now too short to start this discussion yet, but I think we need some reflection about. But as far as myself is concerned, I was very happy with this conference and with the people. Some of the people I'm very close to, and I know since years. But others I have learned to see and to appreciate, and I was very happy with all these papers from very different kinds, but also very interesting as they were. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark, for these closing remarks. And I think that we are happy to end conference here. We will keep in touch. We will meet each other in, I hope, in person, because we can regret again and again is that we are not going to fashion museum now, as it was planned. There is beautiful exhibition about mother and child now, is that we have not time to speak with Toms about his movie experience more privately. But now I just wish you to enjoy weekend and I hope to be in touch with all of you. Thank you so much again and again. Bye.
Bye, Vita. Thanks.